Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Grand Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I'm going to be digging deep into a card, and we're going to be talking about, well, its potential in Commander and how it might be some untapped potential because this card sees nearly no play at all, and it is a potential powerhouse, though it is a risky one. So with all that said, let's jump into it and talk about a potential hidden gem with Symbiotic Deployment. So, Symbiotic Deployment is a card that is just 43 cents. It is a card from way back in, is that Apocalypse? I can't remember what that one is. Anyways, it's a long time ago. Before I even started playing Magic, this is a card way back when. An enchantment for 2 in a green. Skip your draw step. So that is obviously a massive downside and the risk to this card. But let's see how that can pay off potentially. Pay a single mana, tap 2 untap creatures you control, draw a card. So this card has the potential to draw you an absurd amount of cards very cheaply. The problem is obviously that there is a risk to it in that you have to skip your draw step. Now, is there a, is this like a card that you should just throw in any deck out there? Absolutely not. There needs to be some considerations for it. Number one, can you take advantage of the massive amount of card draw? Again, just paying 1 mana to draw a card is absurd. That is absurd value. That is so efficient, it's crazy. That being said, of course, you need to be able to tap creatures to do so. That being said, there are certain decks out there where it's like, yeah, I've got 20 creatures lying around. Of course, I can tap a lot of them. Or you have decks that can untap creatures very easily too. So of course, there are certain decks out there that can really take advantage of this, but they are not. They are not taking advantage of it because, well, probably either they don't know about it or they are scared. This card sees play in 0% of decks out there according to Trek, which is kind of misleading because it's like, I mean, you round down to 0, but it's like 688 decks, which is basically nothing in Magic because there are so many decks out there. This sees play in 0% of eligible decks out there that can include green. Yeah, there's a reason why it doesn't see play because, again, players either don't know about it or because they are scared because, yeah, the potential to get locked out of the game is there. That being said, yeah, you got ways to work around that. You got ways to take advantage of this, and you got ways to pull out of the situation if you need to. With the right commander, this can be an absurd card draw engine for you. Your best card draw engine, potentially. Again, 1 mana draw 1 card is crazy. And this isn't like, hey, at sorcery speed. If it was that, yeah, okay, you know what, I understand. But again, right before your turn, let's say you've got like 8 creatures available, which is pretty easy for certain decks out there. We'll talk about a couple of them here in a little bit. You pay 4 mana, you tap those creatures, you draw 4. Yes, please. Repeatable, accessible card draw. That is, again, on an enchantment, in my opinion, the hardest permanent type to deal with. Again, you lose out on the draw step draw. That is 1 card. That is 1 card. There is a risk to that because, yeah, at a certain point, if you get shut out, oh no. If this is in play, you got no way to deal with it. You got no way to stop. You got no creatures in play. You're stuck. But again, there are ways around that. There are things that you can do to prevent that, and there are ways to make this into a gem in your deck. Let's talk about some commanders that, in my opinion, are not playing this card and should be considering it. Let's jump into them. First up, Chatterfang Squirrel General. This is a commander that is synonymous with absurd token explosions on the table. Just having an absurd number of tokens, not know what to deal with them, really. You're just like, I got all these squirrels. Okay, I guess attack? Yeah, you can very easily have an absurd amount of creatures in play. A 3/3 Squirrel Warrior for 3 mana in green. Forest Walk. If one or more tokens be created under your control, those tokens plus that many squirrels are created instead. Pay a black, sacrifice X squirrel, start creature gets +X, -X until end turn. This is a commander that says, hey, you know what? I'm going to make a bunch of tokens. That can be any kind of tokens, yes, but also if I'm making creature tokens, I'm basically doubling that up and making squirrels too. You can make so many tokens so fast that your opponent's heads will spin. And with that, again, you go so wide quickly, that again, you set this giant army and you'd be like, well, I need some card draw now. There's plenty of ways to draw cards, yes, but also with this one, it is now repeatable card draw, easy access for you. Again, you just say, okay, I've got my creatures, whatever, doing some cards in my hand right now. Cool, I'll pay 1 mana, tap 2 of my squirrels, whatever, draw a card. Pay 1 mana, tap 2 of my squirrels, draw a card. Or again, wait right before your turn, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, cool, tap my squirrels, draw cards. Is there a risk to it? Yes, there is a risk to it. I don't want to downplay that, okay? There is a risk to it in that, oh no, if someone wipes the board and you have no more creatures out, you are out of your draw step, essentially, and all of a sudden you need a way to deal with that. That being said, hey, you know what? Things happen in Magic. There are backup plans that can be had, and there are ways around that. Very simply, well, I mean, one way could be like heroic intervention, protect your board. That always can't be dependent upon, obviously, but also have some other ways to make creatures, have some other creatures in your hand as backups, and also maybe just have a very simple way to deal with your own enchantment, whether that is a bounce effect, most likely not in these colors, or a way to destroy it. Which, yes, that does feel bad when you eventually have to do that, but you also probably got a good enough value out of it. Obviously, you're not going to just keep playing that. You're not going to play Symbiotic Deployment down on an open board. You're not going to be like, oh, I've got no creatures in play. Play it. Oh, no, my draw step's gone. You're going to wait until you're in a position where you have so many creatures in play that you can take advantage of it. You can draw so many cards with it to set yourself up for success. So, obviously, you can have some removal ready to go. This commander itself does not remove. That being said, again, you can make so many squirrels that you can dig down and get the exact cards that you need to win the game, and ones to actually destroy that enchantment when you actually need to. Next up, Koma Cosmos Serpent, a 6/6 Serpent for 7 mana in Simic. This spell can't be countered at the beginning of each upkeep. Create a 3/3 blue Serpent creature token named Koma's Coil. Sacrifice another Serpent, choose 1. Tap target permanent's activated abilities can't be activated this turn. Gains indestructible of turn. Here's the thing, and this one maybe even more so than Chatterfang should be considered, because again, Chatterfang, technically, yes, you could get shut out of the game with that combination if you're not prepared with Symbiotic Deployment, okay? You play that, oh no, the board gets wiped, you don't have your removal in your hand, you don't have another creature in your hand, you play your commander, and you're just like, I got nothing to do because I can't draw any cards that I need. Okay, that is a scenario you could get shut down if you didn't plan ahead of time or didn't play properly. This one, though, has built in you cannot get shut out. You can't, unless your opponents like destroy your lands. They're not going to do that, though. This is Commander, not CEDH. Anyways, not that CEDH decks are all about destroying lands, but it's just not something that's seen in casual Commander, really. This one makes you a creature token every single upkeep, not just your own. So in a 4-player game, you're making 4 creature tokens each trip around the table, which means you've got the potential to, again, pay 2 mana, draw 2 cards every single trip around the table. Every single time, even if the board gets wiped, you replay your commander and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, cool, more creature tokens. Symbiotic Deployment still works to draw me cards. It's going to keep building and building and building. Again, 4 becomes 8, becomes 12, becomes 16. All of a sudden you've got so many cards that you can build on with Symbiotic Deployment. So again, commanders that can just make you more and more creatures, yeah, take advantage of those and then some. So speaking of which, Beldros Witherbloom, you don't have a problem with creatures or mana, so utilize it. Beldros Witherbloom is a 4/4 Elder Dragon with flying for 7 mana. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 black and green pass creature token with this creature dies. You gain 1 life, pay 10 life, untap a land you control, activate once each turn. Yeah, this is crazy good. This is a very powerful commander. Again, every single upkeep, you are getting a creature token. Like Koma, now they're just 1/1s, but that doesn't matter for Symbiotic Deployment. What matters is, again, you're getting creatures. And with each trip around the table, you can basically draw 2 extra cards by paying 2 mana to do so. That's going to keep building and building and building more and more cards each turn. And of course, you got the mana once you've got so many creatures like, oh gosh, wow, I've got all these creatures in play. What do I do? You can untap your lands. Again, every single turn you can do that if you really want to. You need life to gain, but of course you can gain life cards, other cards you're drawing with the deployment, and essentially untap, dump a lot of mana, draw more cards, untap, do all these crazy things. Yeah, this is a commander that really hits home, I think. Just the power and potential of Symbiotic Deployment, where yes, I understand, again, the hesitancy for cards that can technically backfire on you. But when you have that risk reward, you gotta sometimes say, I'm willing to take the risk because the reward is so great on that. And also, I've got some backup plans just in case. And these commanders already have built-up backup plans because they make you creatures. Speaking of which, Freyalise and Zacama Fury. This one helps out in multiple ways. First up, +2, make a 1/1 elf druid creature token with tap, add green. Secondly, -2, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Right there. We'll talk about the last one too. Draw a card for each green creature control, so even more card draw here too. So go wide for many reasons. This commander wants you to go wide, and I guess I should say it can be your commander, so there you go. Anyways, wants you to go wide because, well, itself wants you to say, oh, okay, draw a ton of cards after I get a lot of creatures in play. Go super wide, go elves, elf ball, great. Cool, do that. Now, with this, you could essentially, again, draw, well, a card for not each half creature. Draw half the amount of cards for the number of creatures you control is what I was going to say, essentially, if I could talk. But yes, basically doing that, essentially, is something you can do every single trip around the table with your creatures. Maybe even more if you've got untap effects too, like Vitalize. And on top of that, there's a built-in panic button to say, like, oh, okay, yeah, break glass in case I get stuck. If you get stuck. Again, if you're like, oh, someone wiped the board and I've got no creatures in play, I got no cards in my hand that can help right now, and Symbiotic Deployment has stopped me from drawing my card, guess what? You can -2 take it out. You can destroy your own enchantment if you need to. Will that feel bad? Yes, but again, know that you have that in your back pocket in case you need to. There is the option. You're not stuck. It's worth the risk. It is worth the risk. I promise it's worth the risk. Next up, Zacama Primal Calamity. I mean, there's different ways to build Zacama decks and whatnot, but again, if you have a commander that can actually take out your own enchantment that can be a detriment to you when it's not working out, that's a good thing. A 9/9 Elder Dinosaur for 9 mana, Vigilance 3 Trample, enters the battlefield. If you cast it on top of land you control, you can pay 3 mana in combination of colors for 3 different effects, essentially. 3 damage to a creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment, you gain 3 life. Obviously, that middle one's like, hey, Symbiotic Deployment's not really working out right now for us. Whatever reason happened, let's just get rid of it. Cool. But essentially, again, with this commander, you're like, I spent all this mana to get this commander in play. Oh, cool, I get that mana back, maybe even more so again if you tap for more than that with your lands, and you can dump that into Symbiotic Deployment to draw a ton of cards to get yourself set up. And obviously, again, if it's not working out, destroy it. Just destroy it. There is a panic button, essentially to say, you know what? I shut myself out of the game. Let's stop shutting myself out. The risk is worth the reward, everyone. Sithus Harvest Hand. This is going to be a card that you're like, well, there's so many other better enchantments to consider. Yes, there's a lot of great enchantments. But this is yet another one that you can be like, you know what? Let's go for the home run, okay? A 1/2 legendary enchantment creature, Nymph for 2 mana. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So just playing this card, you already draw a card. Nice. You're skipping your draw step. Does that matter in a Sithus deck? Again, you've got so much draw, it's absurd. You got this enchantress, you probably have other enchantresses, you have other enchantments that actually draw you when they come to play. That kind of stuff as well. Yeah, so you're fine, all right? If you're not gonna get shut out with a skip the draw step, unless like literally someone, I don't know, destroys all the creatures in play and then also plays like a Sire of Insanity, which makes it so players can't have hands. Okay? Then sure, you're top decking and hoping you get a removal spell. But what would be different in that scenario than if you didn't have Symbiotic Deployment in play? You don't get a top deck. Okay, that's it. That's all the difference is, all right? The game would already be over basically if someone just gets rid of the entire army and your hand. You're done. You're done. You're done. Okay? Worst case scenario, sure, that's not going to work out. But again, in any other scenario, again, the 99% of the time, it's going to be great and fine. Essentially, you play this, you have creatures that are going wide in this deck too sometimes. You got like enchantment creatures in play, whatever you're doing with this deck. If you've got enough creatures in play, cool. Pay some mana, tap those creatures, draw some cards, and have fun with it, okay? Moving on, Muldrotha the Gravetide. This is a commander that turns your graveyard essentially into a second hand when it comes to permanents. 6/6 Elemental Avatar for 6 mana in Sultai. During each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a permanent spell of each permanent type from your graveyard. This gives you a different avenue to deal with your own problem. Again, if Symbiotic Deployment isn't working out, again, like let's say you had a good thing going and someone wiped the board or whatever, you're like, oh no, I skipped my draw step, what shall I do? Your graveyard's a second hand, okay? You got things in your graveyard that you can get back, like maybe like a Caustic Caterpillar, which you can utilize to destroy your Symbiotic Deployment. You got plenty of ways to deal that, or again, just get creatures in play from there, draw cards from there. You're not going to be stuck unless someone also Bajuka Bogs. Again, this is the type of card that players are just like, well, I don't want to take that risk. It's okay to take risks sometimes, all right? It's okay, Magic players out there. We can take risks. We can gamble. Cast your gamble. Go get an artifact. Hopefully you don't discard it. You know, the red card. Anyways. It's okay to take risks, especially with certain commanders, again, that have built-in ways to protect you, okay? Next up, Chulane, Teller of Tales. Yeah, I don't know if Chulane needs any more firepower, but this can definitely help. A 2/4 Heathen Druid with Vigilance for 5 mana and banned. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand on the battlefield. Pay 3, tap, return our creature controlled to its owner's hand. This helps out in a lot of ways. This is a disgustingly good commander. Again, if you're casting any creature spells, you're drawing cards. You're also getting lands into play untapped, which means that you're getting more and more and more mana that you can utilize for your symbiotic deployment to then tap those creatures that you got into play to draw more and more cards. On top of that, there are certain creatures out there that probably have some ETBs for you, like, Rex Sage, Reclamation Sage. So, hey, oh no, I'm stuck. Symbiotic deployment's out there. I've got no way to remove it. Oh no. And I've got no creatures in play. Don't know how this entire scenario happened, but again, the scary scenario of like, oh no, nothing's happening, oh no. Bounce your Reclamation Sage back to your hand and then replay it and destroy your own enchantment, okay? Like, there are ways to deal with it. There are ways to say, like, you know what? Worst case scenario, we can work with that. We can work that. And if it's the worst case scenario, it's fine, all right? You get around it, all right? Moving on. How about this one? This one seems pretty obvious because the downside is not a downside anymore. Damia, Sage of Stone, a 4/4 Gorgon Wizard with Death Touch for 7 mana in Saltize. Skip your draw step. It already has the downside written on it. The downside is there. The worst part about this card, the part of the card that scares everyone away from this card is already on this commander. It's already there. There's no downside to the card on top of that. I guess you could say like, oh, what if my commander's dealt with? Well, then your commander's dealt with, okay? Then play your commander again. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have fewer than 7 cards in your hand, draw cards equal the difference. So again, you can draw back up. You can draw more, essentially, a Damia deck, typically, I would say not all of them. The ones that I have essentially built are like, hey, like, have a free discard outlet in play that gives you value. Like, hey, discard a card, add a black mana, discard 2 cards, make a zombie, discard a land card, make a 2/2 bear. Those kinds of cards. So you're basically discarding your entire hand and then going back up to 7. But essentially, again, if you're going with that token strategy where you're going wide with a bunch of discarding and creating creatures, cool. Use Symbiotic Deployment, which has no downside to it when it's in play with your commander because it's the same downside. It's not like skip 2 draw steps. There's not 2 draw steps. You're skipping just 1. Anyways, you are now able to then tap those creatures, draw even more. So you're going up and beyond 7 every single time and then utilizing even more cards to discard them as well. Next up, very simple one, Reki, the History of Kamigawa. Again, a commander that has a built-in draw engine for you can help you. Essentially, again, if you're stuck, you're like, I skipped my draw step. Oh no, I've got no way to deal with my own symbiotic deployment after someone wiped the board. Oh no. Play your cards to draw more cards to get removal. There you go, okay? Droyal and Wily Recluse. This one actually does show up on the symbiotic deployment page. There's a couple of commanders that do. Again, their percentages are very low still, though. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 cat creature token by paying an amount of mana, 6. Until end of turn, creature control base power notice XX for X number of cards in your hand. This card works amazingly with all aspects of this card. Essentially, again, if you pay 2 mana each turn to draw a card, you're making another cat, which adds to your army, which gives you more cards that you can draw each and every single turn, essentially. So do so. On top of that, by building a massive hand, you can say, oh, okay, cool, pump my creatures, hit you for a ton. So yeah, literally, again, like it's one of those scenarios where like, right before your turn, you're like, okay, dump the rest of my mana, tap my creatures, draw even more cards. I got like 14 cards in my hand. All these cats that I just made and been making throughout the game. Now I'm going to pump them to, again, like 14/14s, swing at my opponents and take them out. So an incredible combination with this one. Again, a commander that really synergized with it. It's going to be that one. Another one, Wily Duke at Hero. 4 Human Rage with Vigilance. When it becomes tap, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So now every single time you're tapping this commander, you are not only drawing, again, with Symbiotic Deployment, tapping this plus another creature, but also drawing an extra card. So again, paying 1 mana to gain 1 life and draw 2, that feels pretty good. So yeah, there's a lot of cool combinations you can do this one. And again, if you're stuck, oh no, you're going to be able to keep digging down into your deck and essentially, yeah, you're going to find those responses, the things that you need to be able to take out your own enchantment if you are stuck. But again, with those like worst case scenarios, like the game's probably already over in the worst case scenario, so go for it, swing for the fences with Amara Soul the Accord. Comes tap, create a 1/1 white soldier creature with lifelink. This type of commander that has a lot of ways to untap. So essentially, cool, keep untapping your creatures, keep tapping them. Tap this one, keep building your army more and more and more, giving you more opportunities to make more and more creatures, to make more and more card draw with Symbiotic Deployment. Finally, Ohaba Kalaria, a 1/3 elf archer with reach. Untap all archers you control during each of the player's untap step. Whatever an archer you control deals damage to a creature, you may pay 2 to draw a card. Yet you can more effectively draw cards by simply just paying 1 mana to tap 2 archers to draw a card every single time you want to. Then it's your opponent's turn, and then you're like, okay, untap them, do it again. Untap them, do it again. Untap them, do it again. Your only limitation is mana, and again, here's the thing, you're in green. You're gonna be able to get a lot of mana out there. So yes, this card, I think, has a lot of potential for a lot of commanders out there. Is there a risk to it? Yes, there is a risk to it, but it is worth that risk in many scenarios, and players, I think, are just either they don't know about it or they're not willing to take that risk. And I'm telling you, there are certain commanders out there, you need to take that risk. You need to jump for it. You need to go for it. Try it out. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to hear from you. So in the comments below, what are your thoughts on Symbiotic deployment? Did I convince you? Did I say, you know what? This is what you need to do. And you're like, yes, I will try it out. And then if it doesn't work the first time, you're going to be like, Mitch, you made me waste 43 cents on Symbiotic deployment. How dare you? Or if it does work out, you're like, Mitch, you're a genius. 43 cents, my best card draw engine in my entire deck. My friends were like, what is that? And then you're like, I'm skipping my draw step. And they're like, you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. And then it worked out, and then you won the game. So yeah, let me know which of those two scenarios happened or somewhere in between. If you are interested in the cards I talked about on this episode, including Symbiotic deployment, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.